Serious. What is a seemingly normal photo that has a disturbing backstory? If you're British, and of a certain age, you'll probably be as haunted by this grainy image as I am. I still distinctly remember the first time I saw it. At the time, James Bulger was only missing, and it was regarded as a cause for optimism that he was last seen with other children. The truth was far worse than anyone imagined, and still inspires a visceral reaction unlike any other crime in my lifetime. This is a photo of Tyler Hadley holding a cup in a party at his house. Just before this party he had murdered his mother and father and hid their bodies in the master bedroom. Murder of Blake and Mary Jo Hadley. Tyler Hadley's killer party. The boy holding the free hug sign that went viral for hugging a cop. Ultimately he was being used by his abusive adoptive mother for online social clout, and eventually she murdered their whole family by driving their car off of a cliff. I understand that this link treats his mothers rather lightly, as several commenter have pointed out. The Broken Hearts podcast is an excellent deep dive into this horrible tragedy. John Edwards Robinson. This photo. John Edwards Robinson, yellow sweater, is holding baby Tiffany, whose mother he murdered the day before. He gave baby Tiffany to his brother, saying she was adopted. His brother, along with Tiffany, didn't find out the truth for 15 years. This photo creeps me out. John Lennon signed an autograph for his killer, Mark Chapman, just a few hours before the murder and then asked him, "Is that all?" Chapman even had a gun on him at the time. The happy photo of the father and daughter taken moments before the Omagh car bombing. This picture was taken of a group of people whose plane crashed in the Andes. They were eventually saved but had to resort to cannibalism to survive. They are all smiling in the photo, but it becomes eerie when you realize the human spine to the right of them in the picture. I've posted this before. A politician at an election rally. Last photo of Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. Taken moments before a suicide bomber, wearing orange flowers, lower left. Also on the inset, top left. Hugged him bent down and touched his feet and detonated her bomb. Edit. Last 2 frames of the film. Edit2. You, that a non-dude, thanks for the correction. Apparently this is a photo of a 4-year-old girl's footprints before she drowned in a pond. There is a photo of an American volcanologist sitting down while studying volcanic activity at Mount St. Helens. Photo. Article. 13 hours after the photograph was taken, on May 18, 1980, the volcano erupted and killed 57 people including the volcanologist. 2 brothers smiling, Kevin and Bart Whitaker. Hours later, after arriving home from dinner, Bart killed Kevin and his mother after conspiring with a friend. He tried to kill his father as well, but he survived. It's a horrible story. I don't know what became of Bart though, all I know is that his father somehow found the courage to forgive him. This physicist, Harold Agnew, is holding the nuclear core of the Fat Man atomic bomb which was dropped on Nagasaki. Edit. Source article. There is one more pic of Agnew on that webpage. This photo of Travis Alexander by Jodi Arias. Moments before she killed him. It's fucking haunting to me. The Creamers, Froon photos. 2 photogenic Dutch girls traveling in Panama. They go hiking in the jungle and never return. Weeks later their backpack and some body fragments are found miles away in another mountain valley. In the backpack is a camera containing photos of them happily hiking up the trail. Then a mysteriously deleted photo. Then multiple somewhat random photos from days later, at night, somewhat randomly framed, with only hints that the girls are actually behind the camera, apart from a photo of the hair on the back of one of their heads. Is she dead? Sleeping? Where are they and how did they get there? And was it an accident or foul play? Has its own subreddit r, Creamers Froon. A kid went missing hiking a spot on the Big Island of Hawaii. He texted some pictures of the scenery while he was hiking. After he never showed up at home, his family noticed somebody lurking in bushes in the photos he sent. IRC, my family that live in Hawaii said the spot is illegal to hike at, so it's not like it would have been a heavily populated trail. More info, and the photo in question. A still photo from a video. A man who swam to his girlfriend in their underwater hotel room while on vacation in Tanzania, and proposed to her with a note and a ring. He died before he could resurface from the water. Louisiana man dies during underwater proposal. This one. It's the last picture taken of 18-year-old Jolie Callan before her boyfriend shot her twice in the head and pushed her body off the cliff. Here is an article about it. This one is pretty well known, but I scrolled pretty far down and couldn't find this picture. It's a picture of Joseph Goebbels taken just after he just found out the photographer was Jewish. I can feel the hate in his eyes. Second-hand story. So a Redditor once posted his grandma's story of how she grew up in London, and was being sexually harassed by a guy. Grandma mentioned how she was friends with these nice two boys from the neighborhood, who said they'd tell him to knock it off, and she never saw the offending guy again. Those boys were so nice and helpful. She even has a picture of the three of them, wait, she'll look it up. To which her family replied, Nan, what do you mean you were friends with the Cray twins? In the old days, it used to be common to take pictures with dead relatives. The woman in the middle is already dead. There's tons of them too. Like I said, this was common practice. Here. What is your worst experience with bad neighbors? Had one that would basically steal our mail and shit. Caught her once to confront her and she started yelling at me to stop attacking her and tried to say I was stealing her stuff. Ended up with the police getting called and us filing a restraining order against her. Apartment building, the upstairs neighbor's dog peed on their patio and it dripped down onto me while I was sitting outside reading. I yelled and ran to shower, and when I texted them to ask them to take their dog out to pee in future, they said it wasn't their dog and it must have blown over from somewhere else. What? They were crackheads. They had 2 kids, were physically and verbally abusive to each other and were hoarders on top of it. Called Child Protective Services and the police over and over and was never taken seriously. They ended up burning down their apartment and caused thousands of dollars in damage to the rest of the apartment building because they were cooking meth. We had to move out, as did many others. The silver lining is that they finally got their kids taken away after that. A bunch of things with my ding-dong neighbor. She had a large dog that hated my older, smaller dog. One day her dog ran into my yard and bit my dog. She did apologize for this one, did not happen again. Neighbor dumped her lawn clippings into my backyard. Had to ask her to stop and clean up her mess. She decided to build a fence. No survey. So I paid for a survey of my property. She started building her fence 3 feet over on my property. I had her stop and remove the fence. She was angry and never rebuilt it. I painted my house. She painted her house, same color. I bought a new car. She bought a new car, same color, same configuration. There's other minor stuff, but that's enough. Odd person. Very odd. My neighbor once shot both my dogs and his goat and made me bury both. One dog survived, thankfully. He then tried to make us pay for a new goat, claiming that our dogs attacked it. The goat had bullet wounds and no bite marks. I have a schizophrenic neighbor that has believed for years that I am hacking his electronic devices, scanning his phone, harassing, terrorizing him, etc. Over the years he has claimed I've held an old man hostage in my condo, allowed blood to drip from my patio to his, and that I'm a terrible racist. He leaves notes on the inside of his car accusing me of these things. Our current neighbors have 2 dogs they let out into their tiny backyard that borders our driveway. They never, ever pick up the dog poop and it smells like shit. Also, one of the dogs freaks out when she sees us. They mow their lawn maybe 4 times a year. The grass gets so tall, it's taller than the smaller dog. We are putting up a privacy fence next week. I cannot wait. My neighbors create this toxic smoke out of their chimney. We suspect that they are making drugs. Probably our neighbors in our apartment that just let their damn dog bark all day long on their porch. Like I don't think that dog is ever inside even during the winter until it's nighttime. It's so annoying. Dude pretended to be a reverend but was actually just a filthy fucking hoarder. He insisted on wearing sandals all of the time, and whenever he left his flat, the entire stairwell would stink of century-old unwashed feet. Eventually, the beetles that had infested his flat crawled up and into our kitchen and then everywhere. Took months to get him evicted. Fuck that guy. My mom has a neighbor who literally looks through her window to try to see into the house. She's had to call the cops on her multiple times. Guy owned 6 cars and kept them all parked on the street in a very congested block of apartments. Spent hours tending to them, and they somehow always looked rustier when he was done. If a leaf landed on one of his cars, he would accuse the neighborhood of intentionally placing leaves on his car to annoy him. I was in the burbs. There was a house that let their dog bark all day. Another house would party until 3 a.m. and the people living behind us would throw their dirty diapers into our backyard. The party house and the dog barking house made me miss so much work. Nothing like calling your boss and saying, "I can't drive to work because in the last 3 days I have had 4 hours sleep." I've posted this before. Our neighbor was tossing bags of her vomit into my yard for about a year. Like 50 bags. Called the cops. Turns out she had an eating disorder she was hiding from her parents. They had a small dog that had an annoying high-pitched bark that wouldn't shut up day or night. It was on the same side as our bedroom. We asked nicely and they did nothing. We finally called the cops and animal control. Nobody helped. I rented a flat with an ex and the upstairs neighbor was an absolute nightmare. Deadbeat dad who had his kid every weekend and left them screaming all the time. He'd blast music until sunrise every day even when he had his kid. Got the council involved, nothing happened. Got child services involved, nothing happened. He used to argue every Sunday with his ex about how he wasn't paying child support. They'd argue right outside our door. We were on the ground floor. The guy was unemployed, owed the landlord a lot of money, and only left his flat to get groceries or drugs. He kicked off at me because my cat meowed loudly once. Dude had just moved in across the street and threw a housewarming party. Loud music all night until the cops were called and shut it down. Finally got to bed around 2 a.m. Woke up at 3:30 a.m. to this asshole going door to door demanding to know if it was the person living there who called the cops. My neighbors have fights in the street. She fucked my husband, while I was in the hospital giving birth to our daughter. The middle-aged, elephant man who lives above me. I can hear him masturbate. I never knew people moaned so loudly by themselves. He's an elementary school teacher so, with everyone working from home, I've also heard him masturbate right after teaching a class, which adds to the repulsiveness. As a note, I'm all for neighbors making noise while having sex. But to moan so loudly while masturbating just seems excessive and creepy. He stomps around at all hours of the night. Most of the time, it sounds like he's directly above me while I'm trying to sleep. Oh, and he think he's the boss of our tiny apartment building telling people to move their laundry, trash cans, where to park, etc.